program is part of the Scene Projects Podcast Network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is filmmaker and brand strategist, Jake Isham. Jake, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me on, man. Very excited to be here.
This is going to be a cool episode. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit in the content creation side, but before we get into the weeds, I really just want to give you the opportunity to give us a little bit of your backstory.
Well, I'm an LA boy, grew up in Los Angeles and kind of one of the rare people who've been born and raised and stayed out here. Other than that, I grew up acting, grew up doing music, and kind of, right before college, right at the end, near the end of high school, fell in love with behind the camera and got more into that, went to film school. And then film school, they don't really tell you what to do in terms of how to make a living and whatnot. So post film school, post college, had to, figure it out and built an agency, built this company in which we shoot content for cool brands. Since starting it, we've now done over 1 billion views online. I've worked with brands like Travis Mathew, Callaway, Campari. I've worked with entrepreneurs like Grant Cardone, and it's been a fun, wild ride.
Yeah. So film school is just like every other school.
I learned a lot about the craft, and I definitely owe a lot. I was very fortunate to go to school called Chapman down in Orange County, right near Disneyland. Just outside of LA. And, my first semester, I made 3-4 short films. So, I went to a school that pushed doing it, not learning. And so even in the course of the school year, in those 4 years, I wrote a lot of scripts. I made a lot of films. So I was very fortunate to pick, in my opinion, a really good school that facilitated filmmaking. And I didn't even take full advantage of it. There were short films being shot every weekend. And at that time, I was deep into music. And I was running a recording studio back in Los Angeles. So I was running back to LA every weekend. And I was dating a girl from high school at the time. And I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So I was seeing my younger siblings. My younger siblings were very big football players. So I was being split in many directions during college. And I didn't take as full advantage of it, but it, that's life.
Do you feel like your music background has helped you as we've moved forward now and short form content has become so important and not so much like longer films, and even a short film is, 20, 30 minutes, right? That working on, I'm sure you were shooting music videos and just having a bent towards shorter content has really poised you to be, as dominant as you have been in this creation field as the industry is now.
I think my background in music is not in that sense, in the sense of it's helped me with short form content. But, literally, I just shot a live concert, an hour and a half. It was a 2.5 hour concert that I had to edit down to an hour and a half that we're going to be pitching to Netflix and, the big distributors, and I'm making edits in the middle of songs because the guy messed up the chords. And so he's like, okay, I got to cut this out. I got to cut this in. I got to and my background in music helped with that. It was really funny. So one of the films I made recently, last year, I made 14 short films in 4 months. And I'm self-funding all of this stuff. And if anything, it's like me and my wife doing all of it ourselves. Literally, the credits is Jake, Courtney, Jake, Courtney, 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 Jake, 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 Courtney, Courtney, Jake. And one of my films that I wrote I directed, I DP'd, and I starred in. I'm in front of the camera and behind the camera at the same time. And I somehow won Best Actor in a festival, but I also won Best Music. The music is stock music. I didn't write a goddamn lick of that music. I got it offline. But the thing is this, I know what the right music to pick. And that's half the thing is, you know, as a director, and that's where like the background in music and understanding that, because and I take it for granted because I'm like, it's not that hard. Pick the right song. And then I saw a buddy showed me his pilot that he did. And he didn't have money for a composer. So he did stock music. And I go, ooh, this music is horrible. Like, it doesn't make any sense for the movie. It's not helping. It's hurting the pilot. A pilot is just the first episode of a television show that you typically try to pitch so that you get it picked up. Right? It's that first episode. And I was like, it's hurting your movie. It's hurting your show. And I realized, like, that's my background in music. Like, it's helped me do that. It's helped me be a better editor. It's helped me be a better filmmaker, and just an all around, like, just an artist, because I have a greater understanding of art, but, you know, to sound pretentious.
Well, I mean, you have to be a little bit pretentious to be in the film industry anyway. So,
you know,
it suits you. You wear it well, because I think you're still at your heart a very humble dude. Just having, you know, we had a little pre-production meeting last week and got to know each other a little bit. I think everything that you've worked with some major brands. You've got to do some really cool stuff out there, and to bring your lens into the business world. Was that a difficult transition to go from creating art kind of for art's sake to creating art for brands to sell their products?
Difficult? No, mentally, it was more mentally difficult, because I'll give you about two different major moments in my life. So first was kind of shortly after college, and I started growing my own social media really quickly. And then people started referring to me as a social media guy, like a little bit of an influencer, a little bit of like, just, oh, you're like a social media guy. Like, you know, social media. And this is, again, before social media was cool. This was over a decade ago. Like, you know, to date us, unfortunately, you know, this is when you would like go on when Facebook was the poppin' social media platform to be on, and you would poke your friends, right? Old fart stuff right now. And I rejected it, because I was like, no, I'm a filmmaker. I make movies. I make films. That's what I'm doing. I want to be in Hollywood. And it was awful. I had to, it's a little bit of a come to, you know, as they say, come to Jesus moment, a little come to, you know, figure out, you know, self-identity crisis, because I had to make money. People were like, well, I'll pay you to help me with my social media. I was like, all right, how does $100 sound? I need to pay rent because I'm a starving artist. So there's that. And then I started, you know, and a mentor of mine was basically just like, keep a camera in your hand. If you want to direct movies, just take any job that keeps a camera in your hand. You don't work at an agency. Don't work at an agency, but like, you could be a waiter, you could be this, or you could just shoot anything that keeps a camera in your hand. So I kept doing that, and I kept working. And there was a year in my life that I did a tremendous amount of product photography. And in that product photography, I had clients who wouldn't re-sign with me. I kept getting like I thought I kept crushing the photos. I was like, dude, this photo's so sick. And I was so proud of the work. But clients would be like, I want a refund. Thank you. We're going to hire somebody else also. I was like, I just keep going, what is going on here? Because again, I'm being an artist. I'm not being an entrepreneur. I'm not fully being a businessman. And I realized I was not delivering what they want. Not what I want, but what do they want? This is not art. This is commerce. If I'm not delivering what they want and I'm not helping make them money, I'm not going to make any money. And that was one of the first hard lessons I had to learn in business, which is, and if you look at Hollywood, it's the same way. Like, you have this thing called director jail. These directors will make a movie and they'll get hot. If their movie makes money, they can make another movie. If their movie does not make money, they don't get to make more movies. It's a business. And, you know, it's across any art form. If your paintings are selling, you get to keep painting. If your music is selling and your tours are selling, you can keep touring and making music. If you ain't making money, so that was kind of it was an early lesson. It was a hard lesson, but because I didn't realize it at that point. I realized it years later, after I worked with a very big, this e-com brand that was making $100 million a year, and I realized the specificity of like what they need, because I was early on in product photography. Like there was a big Amazon boom a number of years ago where everybody was trying to sell on Amazon. Like that was the way to do it. And so then years later, I was consulting with this Amazon brand and realized the specificity in their product photography and what they were doing, because I wasn't doing it anymore. And it was an interesting realization years later to go, oh, that's why
I kept getting fired.
Yeah. But I didn't, because again, I didn't realize it then. It took me 6 years later. Yeah, 6 years later when I worked with this e-com brand, because then I was working on their the CEO's personal brand, which is kind of what I focus on now. And, you know, he runs this $100 million e-com brand, and seeing the behind the scenes of what he needs and go, oh, I got it why I fucked up then. Again, it was the hard lessons over years, because again, the entrepreneurship doesn't come naturally for me. The artisticness comes naturally for me. Oh, let me create something that I think is cool. I have a relatively pop sensibility. I have a relatively mainstream, affinity and likeness. So I think what I think is cool, kind of the general population will think is cool. And that's not always the right thing for marketing and for business.
Yeah. And it's tough to be a bridge to that, to kind of bridge those two worlds together, to like take a brand and I know what you want to do, but here's a little bit of spin that I'm going to put out it so that like it actually is still cool as well. And that's probably why you're so successful at what you're doing now, and why you've been able to work with some of these massive brands and to build this name and this portfolio for yourself, is because you still have that artistic side. Because I think a lot of videographers or something that wouldn't call themselves necessarily filmmakers can go and do a shot. They can take directions. They can listen to a client and go, I can deliver you that. Where I think you're always going to have this little bit of an artistic bent to it, where you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I can deliver that, but I'm going to deliver it to look a little bit like this and make it work and keep your job.
And that's the whole thing of creatives. It's like, what's going to make you stand out compared to everybody else? Like if you have no artistic twist to it, you have no artistic voice, like you have to do just slightly something different. Like what makes you that little bit different that people go, ooh, that's a you. Like, especially like, you look at painting, right? There's the joke of modern art where you see like the blue canvas. It's like, well, I could do that. Yeah, but you didn't. He did. She did. It's like, it's not like what makes you just slightly different. And then, my biggest advice is like the only reason where you find yourself that's something different or that's you is by just doing it enough. You just have to do it enough.
Yeah, reps are so important. And that's, even when I started out in the podcasting world, I've only been at this for like less than 2 years. March of 24 is when I had started and just started putting a microphone. Now I've been talking and having conversations. I mean, I was up and down the West Coast in my early 20s and on Venice Beach busking with my guitar. And I was always having conversations. I've always been a talker, right? I say it all the time, right? If you would have told anyone in my family growing up or any of my friends that I was going to make a living running my mouth, they'd have believed you. I just didn't know what that was going to be. And it was, mistakes and wrong turns along the way that's brought us to here. But all of those wrong turns also gave me this vast amount of life experience, which makes me a really good interviewer. I think someone described it to me last week. on an interview or just on a call is like your emotional intelligence is so high. You're able to meet people where they're at, no matter these different walks of life that you're in. Fast forward, 2 years from starting, I've interviewed well over 500 people. We have over 400 episodes out there. But that first 9 months of 2024 was just like, got to get to 100 episodes, right? Got to have to get 100 so that podcasters take me seriously. When I come in, I didn't even call myself a podcaster at that time. It was just like, if I get to 100, then I can call myself a podcaster. So I got 100 episodes out in 9 months, right? And some of those were, a conglomeration of conversations. So I'd had all of those reps built into that before I ever stepped behind a camera to go to YouTube. So when we came to YouTube, I was already, very comfortable with conversation, but I didn't know how to look at the damn camera. I'm looking at the screen, my screen above it. And not until somebody's like, what are you looking at? And I was like, because I'm not a movie guy, right? I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not those things. But, since this, so it's been, these little learning moments along the way. And because I do it so much, I've got to learn a lot in a short amount of linear time, right? Yeah. I've spent a ton of time behind camera, in front of camera now, to have learned a lot of lessons without having that arc of like, well, that took me 6 years to go from here to there. But I don't have anyone that's like hiring me. I'm not learning job to job. I'm just creating my own thing and being on camera and doing it. And a lot of the ways that, you're learning, I'm sure you learn every day when you're shooting 14 short films in 4 months. Like with all the experience you have, you're still learning like, oh, well, not going to do that again.
Yeah. There's two things I want to add on that, which is first, that rule of 100. It's live and die by that. Like that is like anybody who's coming up in literally anything right there. What you just said is so key. It's like, I didn't, stop until I didn't take myself seriously until I did 100 episodes. Literally write 100 songs, make 100 short films, write 100 scripts, make 100 paintings, like do 100 episodes of a podcast, and do not look up. Keep your head down. Do 100 of anything, then look up and then go, okay, do I want to keep doing this? What do I need to pivot? What do I need to learn from this? That right there, like that is so much success. That's why I did the 14 short films in 4 months, was literally because I had been shooting a lot of client work and I hadn't done my creativeness. I hadn't been pushing myself as a filmmaker. Like, yes, I'd been shooting video. That's what I do every day, every week. And I edit for clients, but I wasn't telling narrative stories, short films, narrative scripts where I was like, I have to write a script, I have to shoot it, and this is not a commercial. So, from there, what I did, and I just went on a push and I, busted out 14 short films. Like, what can I do? To the point where we shot 4 short films in a weekend. We shot 1 in the morning on Saturday, 1 at night on Saturday, 1 in the morning on Sunday, 1 at night on Sunday. And one of them was
crazy output over a 48-hour period.
Yeah. And one of them was a 1 take. I was able to find the take, color, edit it, and one of them was already edited and done in that weekend too.
You think you're working hard, people? Go follow Jake and he'll show you what working hard looks like.
But it's like it was a push to say, can I do this? Is this possible? I don't know. Now, are they the best short films? No. But that's the point of it. Are your first 100 episodes good? Some are, but some probably are pretty shitty, to be honest. Like, I know the first time I did the little talking head Grant Cardone thing of, hey guys, what's up? So, and this was 8 years ago or something like that. I had to do 15 takes and realize I am a classically trained actor. I performed in front of thousands of people by the age of 15. And I could not make a selfie video to save my life. And so, it just takes doing the reps. And I think there was another point I wanted to say, but I don't remember it now.
Yeah, that's okay, Jake. I hope we get a chance to talk a lot more over the course of our careers, because I just find it so interesting. And especially with you being a Los Angeles kid who stayed in Los Angeles, like you've always been on the forefront of culture, right? You're seeing it first, whether it's tech. I live in South Dakota. I grew up in South Dakota. Now I've experienced being out in California, Oregon. Oregon for me was such an eye opener because like most of the bands and stuff you have around here are playing songs and bands from 25, 30 years ago, where everything in Oregon is like, no, man, we write our own stuff and we create. And it's, I don't know if it's something about the coast in general, that it's just a freshness and that everything is originality, right? People want original works and we don't want, what was cool yesterday. We want what's going to be cool tomorrow. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And I just being in Los Angeles for a short amount of time that is that it's constantly turning over. They want what's popular next year, right? Like they're so far ahead. Do you feel like that's not only influenced, your career, but has give you maybe some, advantages over people that are maybe creating here in the Midwest or otherwise?
I think it's just a mindset thing where, the only, I don't think it's a particularly an LA thing but I think it's working with people who are working on big things and who are just thinking big, and those exist in the Midwest too. But yes, they are more common in the bigger cities. And because I've seen it in the arts, I've seen it in entrepreneurship, is these people are thinking in years and in decades, right? They're playing chess over years. They go like working with clothing. I got to work with a lot of clothing brands because I was shooting a lot of corporate stuff. And then I was like, I am sick of shooting lawyers and accident attorneys and ambulance chasers and doctors about plastic surgery. I was like, I cannot take this anymore. I need to do something creative. And so I went on a stint of just shooting clothing brands. I was like, I'm only shooting clothing brands. And I had just gone into golf. So I got to work with a lot of the golf brands I admire, from LA Golf, Travis Matthew, Callaway, and seeing stuff that they were doing that they were like, great, this is coming out in 2 years. What's our design work for 2 years from now? Like they're thinking in years ahead, and then being able to work with several multimillionaires and even a couple billionaires. They're thinking in a decade out. Okay, great. So if we're doing this for the next decade, we're going to get here. If we do this for the next year, we're going to do like they're playing chess that far out. They're not thinking this week in terms of money. And movies, like especially, you look at movies, they take years to get made. Here's a script. I'm going to push this script along. And it could, like Deadpool, for example, is a great example. Everyone knows, oh my God, it was amazing. It was a huge hit. That took 15 years to get made. No,
it took them 10 years just to get a yes to go ahead with it, probably.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, literally over 10 years just to go from like, here's a script. Here, can we get money to get it made? 10 years. And you look at a movie like Avatar. You look at James Cameron's filmography. It was like he made like Terminator 2, and then there was like 2 or 3 films he made, and then there was like a 15-year gap. Then he made Avatar. Like that, because he had he had to wait for technology, he had to wait for the scripts, he had to wait for the money. Like that's the time, but then it's one of the biggest films of all time. And so that's the main difference, is that willingness to look at time in a different way. And that's been kind of a big shift for me. It's like, recording this right at, the end of January. And, when looking at my goals this year, I was like, this year, I'm not worrying about pushing, income targets really heavily. Okay, great. This month we got to go up. This month we got to go up. I'm like, this year we're laying groundwork. We're worrying about just laying groundwork to make it successful, so that in 2027, 2028, we can really then go, hey, okay, great. Now let's push targets. Now let's push GI. Now let's go heavy on marketing. Like this year, I'm not heavily marketing myself or heavily marketing. Like I am, but I'm not. I'm worrying about like building my org structure out, building out frameworks in terms of websites, and going, okay, great. Then, because I know what the estimation of effort of that's what it's going to take and the time it's going to take to do that right. But then I can go in 2027 And I can go, great, because now I have this infrastructure that won't break when I put, hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing and hundreds of thousands of hours in marketing. I'll have the infrastructure and it can just go boom and hockey stick, as they say.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of artists, they just don't realize that organizational infrastructure, because we haven't been trained as entrepreneurs and haven't had conversations with multimillionaires. And that's been a game changer for me, getting out on LinkedIn. And I think just this week alone, I've had like the CEO of Sonic Bids connect with me, and the CEO of another big, tech and firm. And it's just been a wild journey for even in a short amount of time for the scene projects, but also starting to look back and kind of becoming filmmakers in our own rights, that that we have started to look at, a tour, right? And I'm planning a tour that's happening in March, and working on all of those and the physical parts. Like, I've done a lot of those things. I've played with my band in different places, but the scope of it is already so much bigger. And we're probably not going to sell out a lot of these things that we're going to do, because I don't have the time built into the marketing that it's going to be available. But we're shooting it all on film for that purpose, so that in 2027 or later in 26, we can do it again. And a lot of what we're shooting is like the pilot, right? Like, this first tour and what we're doing is a pilot for the next 10 years of activity. Yeah, exactly. And I've proved it on a small scale, right? I did one of these songwriter showcases with some friends of mine in December of 24. That was like, that's what it is. That's the future of our content. That's where we're going. Okay, how do we extrapolate that now to doing a 10-city tour? And then we're going to include like some creator conferences and actually educate people and build a network of artists and community around that, so that we're not constantly spending our time hunting down the artists. Let's go build out that pool for the next 10 years right now. Right. And start educating people in this time, so that next year when we go back on tour, we can hit 30 cities and it flows like a well-oiled machine. Like, I already know we're going to face a bunch of trials and tribulations over the course of this 2-week tour in March, right? Like, I'm already very conscious, like, everything is not going to go perfect. We're going to learn a lot, but we're going out there, we're taping everything. Are we able to get like some good footage, right? Not saying that it's all going to be good. Can we get something that, and if we shoot 1,000 hours, can we make like an hour and a half of that look really good? Right. And I did, for some people, they just don't understand like content creation from the micro to the macro. You got to put in a ton of time. You are filming a lot more of the, of the experience and the process than what makes it. So much of a movie ends up on the cutting room floor, right? And I've started to kind of look at my life in that way, as like, okay, people are only going to watch the highlights anyway. So let's just figure out a way to make the highlights look really, really good. And if you want that, then you got to go out and shoot a lot of crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's all a learning thing. And, you only get better through the reps, as it's kind of the theme of this. It's like you start understanding, what do you need to shoot? What is worth it? Oh, I shot all of this and I created the story. Oh, well, maybe the next time let's pre-plan a little bit of what is the story we want to tell before we start shooting. Great. Now we can make sure to get those elements. You edit it. Oh, man, I really wish I had these story beats, as they say. Well, if you pre-planned it a little better, you might, but you learned through the reps. You learn through, well, that sucks. Or you learn through mentorship and consulting and et cetera. Like, you learn, as best as you can. And I want to touch on one more point, because, obviously this podcast is so much for artists, whether you're painter, musician, comedian, like you name it. Is that, because I'm very fortunate to have got to mentor a lot of artists, and I speak to a lot of artists on, whether it's podcasts or on stage. And like, the biggest thing I see is the lack of responsibility as an entrepreneur, because they're like, I'm not a businessman, I'm an artist. You look at the best artists in the world, they are businessmen, businesswomen. Like, that is what they The business is them.
You are your IP. That
Yeah.
is a term I'm hearing thrown around a lot lately. And I think both of us kind of embody that, even though we're creating for others a lot and other people are starring roles in our content, that the brand is still each one of us personally and building that out.
But yeah, every actor, every musician, they're going to have an executive division in their organization. The CEO, they are the CEO of their business. No one else is. They are. They're going to have a marketing department. They're going to have a treasury department. You know, someone's got to collect the bills. Someone's got to collect the money, and someone's got to pay the bills. You're going to either pay someone to do it, so then you're going to have an HR department. You're going to have to hire people to help you. That's what an agent is. An agent is a salesman. A manager helps you in your executive division, helps you run your organization. Your business manager, your accountant is in treasury. Like, you're a business. You just don't sell chairs or widgets or, you know, Starbucks coffee. You sell music. You sell acting performances. You sell films. Like, that is your organization. It is a business. And for you to be viable allows you to survive and eat. And so, you know, like, I talk about that all the time to artists, and like that they just got to shift that first mentality about being an entrepreneur, because that's what you are.
Yeah, the days of, oh, I'm an artist and I don't have to do that. Like, okay, cool. Well, you're gonna starve, or you're gonna be working at McDonald's.
I was starving. Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it takes, right?
Because of that, you know, I have different lives, you know, different aspects of my life. I've like lived off of credit cards because I also refused to get a day job. And so I was like, great, let's just swipe the credit card to survive, to pay the groceries. And, you know, there's that steadfastness of like, we're going to just make it work. And, you know, thank God I have a great wife who believes in me and who's on a similar journey. And, you know, we just make it work.
Incredible, Jake. I'm so appreciative of your time. I think you're an incredible person. I think what you do to mentor in this next generation, because I think we can build a stronger industry as a whole if we have a better educated industry, right? Like, if we have people out here that are better educated about what it is. And I've had a little experience going to some business conferences that weren't geared really towards like entertainment at all. And that's why we decided, if we're going out on the road and we're already working with artists and we're bringing these people out, let's find a way to get them in the room for a little bit of education and networking. And we can always deliver on the entertainment. Like, that's the easy part, right? Yeah. Let's bring them out and let's educate them. Let's put some experts in front of them. And I hope that one day we get to have you as one of our panelists or keynotes and delivering this message, because I think it needs to be heard. And I think you're a great person to deliver that message as well. Jake, where can everybody find you? See your work with you, get some mentorship. Go ahead and share it all, man.
I mean, literally just Google my name, Jake Isham, and you will find my filmmaking, my photography, my agency. I pretty much, I am on every single platform, and I have multiple pages on every single platform, unfortunately, because everything is like, okay, great. If you like the photography, follow the photography. But if you like the filmmaking, then you can just follow the filmmaking. You don't have to see any of the photography. You don't have to hear me talk about social media and branding and marketing. And so, just find my name. You'll find any page that you want on pretty much anything.
Awesome, Jake. Well, thank you so much for sharing some insights with me today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for being part of the scene.
Of course. Happy to be.